for today's video, I'm talking to you about the command /clash, everything you need to know for clashes as well as Dboss. Before we jump into the video, please drop a like right now, which is the big thumbs up button down below, and please don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. Now let's jump into this. Okay, so a couple of commands first of all. How do we get here? The command /clash will actually bring up the interface, which has all of the different options available to you here. Right now we are on Earth studies, so we are working towards the Earth clash. Eventually we will unlock Underworld and Void, and I will have separate videos on those when the time comes. How to enter the clash arena. You can either select the totem from this interface and it will take you to the arena like so. You can also do the command clash TP and it will take you here, or you can do the command /clash go and it will take you here as well. Once you are in the arena, there is the command /HP, which shows you players or hides players. So if I just re-enable, I can no longer see anyone, which makes grinding much easier. And obviously when I re-enable it, you'll see there's quite a lot of people here, so it can get a little bit hectic. Now, the next thing to note is when the dragon is up, you actually can't fly around the arena, but as soon as the dragon is down and dead, and there's no more damage to be done, you can do the command /fly and you can fly around the arena. But there are kind of two key aspects to this arena. Aspect number one is obviously the dragon, killing the dragon and doing damage and getting rewards, which we will come back to in a second. The second primary focus is actually to grind different things to get different drops that are then used for the clash crafting recipes, which I'm going to explain how that works to begin with. So for example, there are wheat. You can keep hitting the wheat, and the more wheat that you hit, you will eventually drop what we call a straw. Now that is then used in the recipes and the crafting in just a second. The second thing that you can grind is fishing. Now the fishing is the water just behind the arena when you TP in. Now in order to fish, you're going to need to do the command /shop, and you're going to need to buy a trident from the shop. You cannot fish with a normal fishing rod. When you go into the water, you'll be able to swim along, and you can kind of see over there, that is some fish. If I kind of just swim around and I grab my trident out, you can see in here that you can use the trident to fish. And obviously the more that you drop, the more that you kill, I should say, they drop carp, which is another drop that we need. And then I can swim back over and I can climb up out of the water back to the arena. The next thing that you can grind is the trees. So these oak log trees that are in here, you can actually keep cutting the wood, and eventually the more that you do, you will see here as I'm grinding, we are going to drop what we call an oak branch. Okay, so the next thing to grind is mining. So you can use any pickaxe, and from the area that you spawn, if I kind of come up here, kind of you'll see there is an entrance where you can walk around to this, but then in here you will see the iron ores, and you can go ahead and mine these up. These will then provide you with what we call iron chunks. And the final thing is killing cows. So using a sword, go around and kill all the cows that you see. The more cows that you kill, you are then provided with something called hide. Okay, so once you've done a little bit of grinding, we're going to do the command /clash. And in here, there is a whole list of things that you can see. Now, the first one is recipes, because in recipes, you will be able to see all of the different things that you can craft in here. I'm actually going to go back to my island because I've made something that hopefully will explain this much easier to you. So if we start off with hide, now you get hide from killing cows. Once you have hide, you can then craft that into suede. Suede is then crafted into raw leather, and raw leather is then crafted into hard leather. So going back to that command /clashes, and under the recipes actions here, you can see in order to craft suede, you need hide in each slot. That will then provide you with suede. And then if I come back again, you've then got the raw leather that uses the suede. And then on this column here, we have raw leather that then crafts into hard leather. The exact same for iron chunks. So in the command clash recipes, you can see in here we've got things like forged iron, as well as the iron fragments, as well as the steel. So you start off with your iron chunk. This is what you get when you mine those iron ores from the arena. You use those to craft it into an iron frag. Once you have iron frags, you craft them into forged iron. And then once you have forged iron, you craft them into steel. For straw, this is from doing that wheat. You can then craft straw into flax. You can then craft flax into fiber, and you can then craft fiber into cloth. Carp is from fishing using the trident. You can then craft carp into dried carp, and then you can craft dried carp into carp scales, and then you can craft carp scales into the scale mail. And then for oak branches, this is from the wood cutting of the oak trees. You use the oak branches to craft oak composite, and then you use oak composite to craft oak slat. My OCD is really hurting there. And then you use oak slat to craft an oak panel. Again, just going back to that command clash recipes, and in here you can kind of see all of the different things. There are different recipes, so you can come in and see them, but how I've just described it there is how you would do it. So you start there, that one, and that one. Once you have that highest level, so hard leather, steel, cloth, scale mail, or oak panel, those are then used to forge what we call the armor. Now, it's a grind, I'm going to be honest. It's a grind to get these items in the first place, and then it's a grind to convert them into this level, to this level, and then to this level. Now, there is a buffer, which is essentially using something called the Dungeoner scale. So if I go back to clashes, I'm going to explain this in just a second, but just follow me for a second. If I just go into the scale list, there is something in here called the Dungeoner scale. Now, essentially, you can apply this as a buff, and then when you're grinding in the arena, if you have that on, it basically gives you an increased chance to get additional drops. That will make this grind a little bit faster. What I mean by that is we can craft in the clash recipes armor. Now, there's 5 different types of armor, okay? So stay with me here. We have what we call battle armor, which is the first set here. Battle armor is a +1 strength boost, and this is really good for killing the Dboss dragon. The next one that we have is what we call enhanced armor. Now, this essentially provides you with no buff, but it gives you an additional attribute slot for scales, okay? So you get an additional slot in there for scales. You then have the option for fortified armor, okay? Now, fortified armor essentially provides you with protection. This would be good for Dboss, but I personally feel like this is really good for dungeons, okay? We then have mystic armor. And mystic armor essentially provides you with a +1 mysticism attribute, if that's the right terminology, and then essentially provides you an increase on pulling a rare enchant. And then the final type of armor that you get is worker, and worker is essentially +1 speed. Now, in my opinion, +1 speed is good if you're trying to run around. So if you're grinding the arena and you're basically trying to speed run through the wheat and things, that would be good. Plus speed also could be useful if you are farming and you want a farming buff. My personal opinion, I feel like the best armor for me personally is battle for Dboss, as well as enhanced for grinding. So if you're grinding mining, you're grinding fishing, you're grinding mobs, I think this is going to be the best one because it has that additional slot available for you. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to talk around is scales. So in this window here, you can see something called scales. Now, there's a whole different list of scales. We have a specialist scale, which is an increase of special item drops. We have boss and scale, which is essentially an increase of drops from the Dboss itself, so from the dragon. And there are a whole list in here, guys. I would recommend reading through these. I'm not going to sit and read through all of them because we'll be here all day, but there's a lot in here for you to read through. Now you'll see on each one, there's a different max level. So for example, Specialist can only go to a max level of 5, whereas Boss and Scale can go to a max level of 15. And there are some in here that might only have, for example, Merchant, a max level of 1. Now, in order to get these scales, essentially you get them from killing the Dboss dragon itself. So again, if I go back to the command /go, and in here, when the dragon is spawned and active and you're killing the dragon, you need to do a minimum of 100 damage. As long as you do a minimum of 100 damage, you will have the ability to pull a random scale. Now the scales that you pull, A, are random, and B, have a random level to them. So for example, I'm just going to hover over to give you an inkling as to the ones that I've pulled so far. And then there are some in here where you're thinking, oh my gosh, she's only ever pulled a +1. What is that? But there is some in here that I have that is a +3. And I also had one somewhere that was like this one here, a +9. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so good. And again, going back to that command clash, going over here and the scales, for example, Dungeoner, max level is 15, and I got one that was +9. And so you could pull a 15, you could pull a level 1, you could pull a level 9, you could pull a level 10. It is completely random. So do 100 damage to the dragon and you'll get one at random. It is believed that if you get top 5, you might be lucky in the sense of pulling 2 clash scales rather than 1 clash scale. I know for sure that if you place first and second, you are most likely going to get one. You can also get an additional scale when you're competing in Dboss if you light the arena. And when I say you light the arena, it's essentially where you need to place down a pry, P-R-Y-E, because I think I might have spelled that wrong and pronounced it wrong, and also 1 summoning charge. Now what that essentially is if I come under here, you can see the pry. I'm going to call it pry, guys. I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong. This is what the pry is. And when you place it down, it kind of looks like a fire pit when you place it down. And then on top of that, you need to place what we call the summoning charge. It looks something like this. Now, to get the summoning charge, you can get those from missions, which is where I got mine from. You can also craft 9 scales into a summoning charge as well. And you also get them from completing dungeons. So 3 different ways to get these. And obviously you have to craft the pry itself. Now, how do we actually craft the armor piece, you're wondering? Well, it depends on which one you're looking to craft, right? So by default, the first time you ever do Clash, you will get provided a Clash helmet, and it is the worker base helmet. Again, if I go back to that command Clash recipes in here, you can see how to craft those. So if I wanted battle boots, you can see what you need in order to craft them. So you need 2 oak panels and you need 2 hardened leather. Again, if I just go back to my island really quickly to run through what that is, hardened leather is the highest tier from killing all of the mobs. So you craft your hide into suede, your suede into raw leather, and then you finally get that hard leather. And then on top of that, if I go back to that command for recipes, we also need oak panel. An oak panel is from woodcutting, and as we can see here, it's the highest one. Once you've crafted your armor piece, we can then use what we call armor forging. So in armor forging, you can go ahead and click this one here. You put the armor piece that you're looking to apply your clash to. You can then add your clashes in here, and you will see that will auto apply. If I click this, it will then save it to my helmet, or I can take this out. So for example, I could put this one and this one. I'll now hover over it and we can see here what it then adds as a boost. Now you'll see in the corner, it says attributes 2 out of 5. So I have 5 slots available here. So this is 1, this is 2, 3, it will then apply. I can then put that helmet back in, add another 2, and then it is maxed, okay? So that is where you want a higher clash level, right? Because you could add a level 1 5 times, but you're only going to get +5, okay? So for example, woodcutting. If I had a +1 woodcutting in each slot, I could get a +5 woodcutting in total. But if I already have a +6 in here, and then I can manage to get another +5, a +2, a +1, that's where I can max it out much, much quicker. So the idea is to try and get a higher clash level and then apply it to your armor piece in here. Once you've applied your clash, you cannot remove it, okay? As far as I know, it stays on the armor piece. Once you've maxed out your 5 slots with your attributes, you will automatically receive a bonus slot, okay? And that bonus is automatically applied. Now that bonus can be any of these piece bonuses in here. Now, when it comes to those, you have the ability to get 1 to 3 bonuses. 1 is common, 2 of these is rare, and 3 of those is insanely rare. I don't think I know anyone that's managed to pull 3 of these on the extra bonus piece. There is the intelligence option in here, so you can kind of hover over and they see what they provide you with, and there's loads of different abilities in here and loads of different options. But honestly, the chance of getting +3 bonuses is insane. Again, what I mean by that is once we've got 5 max attributes, so it can be any 5, you can then have the ability to get a bonus on top of that. The final thing for me to talk around is the recycle option. So in the recycle bin, there are 2 different ways to recycle. First of all, you can recycle scales. You can fill this entire thing with different scales or all of the same scale. It doesn't matter if the levels are different, but you need to put 9 scales in total. And then in here, what that will then convert to is a charge. And when I say charge, sorry, I mean a summoning charge, so that you can then obviously place that down. I have an armor piece. So for example, my Clash helmet. And I maxed this out, right? Let's say I had 4 out of 5 attributes on this helmet with 4 out of 5 scales / attributes, we should say. If I was to then place this in here, I can convert that into 2 new scales. Obviously, the higher the level, the higher the bonus scale you can get on that. Okay, and then the final thing to know is how to actually kill the Dboss dragon itself. So you're going to need a bow, and you're also going to need a sword. Now for the bow, it's in /shop, and it's under items. So you can buy a standard bow by default. For arrows, you can get these from dungeons, so you'll need to get arrows from dungeons. I recommend then enchanting your bow using an enchanting table and lapis. You are going to need the enchant infinity, which means then that you have infinite arrows, so you're not going to use all 28 arrows when the boss is up. I recommend having hide players on. Now, when the boss is up and it's flying around in the air like now, you're going to want to shoot that with your bow and arrow. And you're kind of going to want to do damage as best as you can as it's flying around. So as we can see here. Now, while I'm doing this, what will happen in a minute is this dragon is going to drop down to the center of the arena. When it drops down to the center of the arena, stand back. Don't run in straight away, okay? So as he's dropping down now, keep shooting him with your bow and arrow, okay? Because the more that we're shooting, we're doing damage. Each time he flashes red, that means I do damage. When this boss now stands still, you cannot use a bow and arrow. You have to come in with a sword. You can't spam click him, okay? You have to hit him. That little line in the center, when that loads down, is when you can then do it again. Do not stand next to its head, in my opinion. If you stand next to the head, you're instantly going to die and be teleported to spawn, and then you're going to have to do the command clash go or clash TP to be able to come back into the arena. The command /heal does work. I do think you need a rank for that command, but don't quote me on that. But there is a cooldown on it, so you can't just keep healing yourself 24/7. Again, as this dragon is going to come down, you do not want to go anywhere near the head because you are likely to die. The bow will not work when he stands still, but as I'm doing this, as long as you do more than 100 damage, you are going to be rewarded with a clash, a random clash with a random clash level on top. So as we can see here, the boss has died, and in chat now, it's going to tell you the top 5 players, and it also tells you what position you came, which I think is really, really cool. So give this a second. We can see here, I was number 20. I actually received 2 clashes from completing that. And then in here, we'll be able to see what those clashes was. So I got a +5 enchanter and a +12 mining. That's actually really insane. I think that's really good. And that's really good to even catch for that live on stream. But I know this is a long video, guys. I know this is a lot of information to take in. I'm learning just as much as you, but I really hope this has explained a lot. Please let me know in the comment section if it did. Please let me know if I've missed anything off. And let me know in game if you want to see any of the guides and tutorial videos. But honestly, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe. Please don't forget to drop a like right now. I'll see you in another video very soon, but goodbye for now.